Hello everyone, I'm Rob Mithra. Welcome back. It is part 4 of a 5-part video series in which I cover all of the story which was told organically to me via Kingdom Death Monster board game. I have done 2 seasons on the channel. The first 3 parts of this covered season 1, and the second 2 parts will cover season 2. Now, Season 1 was the base People of the Lantern for the majority. I've put expansions in there, but it was the base Kingdom Death Monster campaign, People of the Lantern. And the story, everything in there was completely organic. There was no variance of which the story. There was expansions and stuff I added, but the story that you will get is what you will the story that I got is what is actually represented from the game. This season has a variant campaign rule set, which is the Twilight Knight in Training variant campaign rule. So the first 3 parts explained the People of the Lantern, and that was the end of that campaign. Season 2 would be a new game of Kingdom Death Monster using that variant. So it is not what you can always expect from the game. The other thing with this variant is it changes a rule for one special survivor. In this case, which I've done in explaining the first 3 parts, Season 2 will focus more so on a very specific story, more so than Season 1, where it was the entire settlement was being told the story, and I kind of followed everyone from the settlement. I followed all their stories. I tried to include as many as I could because I didn't know who everybody liked from the first season or whatever, and I never had a overarching story when I was playing. Season 2, I started off with this story in mind, wanting to continue it. So this Season 2 part will be just more focused just on Lightning and her entire story. So, although there are other survivors in there, I'm not going to try to focus on them as much because Season 2, again, is Lightning's story. We're going to follow it to the end. With that said, let's start where we left off. Now, again, Lightning just traded her, or she survived the Gold Smoke Knight because the Gold Smoke Knight and the Twilight Order, they share a common goal of wanting to kill Watchers. When she donned the hood, decided to carry the sword on her back. She hadn't wielded it yet. She just had the sword with her. The Gold Smoke Knight gave her a free pass, right? Didn't decide to snuff her out like it would all the other survivors. It was there after the final lantern. It was there to kill a Watcher. That is what the Gold Smoke Knight came to do. That is what the Twilight Order seeks to do. They have a shared common goal. Hence, Lightning was able to escape. Now, when she began to wander the darkness, that's where she ran into the archivists and her mentor, the Twilight Knight that she had been talking to. And I explained all this for the first 3 parts. So we are officially now starting Season 2. Now, as she gets sent off to go kill the White Lion. The Twilight Knight training campaign will start the same as every other normal campaign. You start with a prologue White Lion. That starts with 4 survivors waking up. In this case, it's 3. 1 survivor got killed, and Lightning takes the place of that person. So there would be 4 with Lightning. They are the starting survivors of the settlement. In this case, it would be Lightning, a survivor named Yisa, a survivor named Mordor, and a survivor named Bill. Those are the 4 starting survivors. So as Lightning gets set off, she's got her cloak, she's got her lantern, she's got her Twilight Sword, but she has been altered. All of her stuff in her past, if you want to go watch the first 1, 2, and 3 parts of this, again, this is starting just Season 2, so if you're really interested in Season 2, I'm going to do a little recap, or not recap, I'm going to expand upon the story. So you'd have to, if you wanted to know all her trauma, all of her past, go watch the first 3 parts. But as she gets sent off, she has the Archivist and her Twilight Knight. The one that, as I was saying, has more of a tattered cloak. It looks like he's begun to rip off parts of it. He doesn't wear his hood up. He was more emotional. He seemed more free thinking, he wasn't as completely nothing, right? Emotionless person, where most Twilight Knights are just emotionless. They don't show emotion. They're not invested in anything. They don't seem to have goals. They don't really do much. They just do what they're supposed to do, and that's it. They don't stray. They don't think for themselves. They don't do much. They're very very just like a machine. They're just programmed to do what it is they do. And that thing, in theory, that they're looking to do is protect the archivist. They travel in pairs of twos. But as I mentioned, this archivist and this Twilight Knight were different. This Twilight Knight was speaking, was open, wanted to connect with Lightning, sought her out for reasons, mostly because she was incredibly strong. That seems to be the reasoning as to why she was sought out. The archivist also agreed to do the mind slate, or the mind locks, to blank her mind, in exchange for her being trained up as another Twilight Knight. Now, there is an alternate, or not alternate, there's another motive that this archivist had. This archivist is dealing with, before I talk about, let's talk about Kingdom Death as a whole. The setting, how Kingdom Death likes to tell its stories. Kingdom Death, if you look at it, a lot of the quarries, a lot of the monsters, a lot of the story, everything conveys a lifetime, or like the life cycle of a monster. Not always, but a lot of them do. So the ones that we talked about, you can learn you can see the entire life cycle as they play through. The lion, the antelopes, the butchers. Butchers were former Forsakers. They have one ending path of a Forsaker in the Forsakers thing, where they trade their humanity for power, like Lightning wanted to do. When they walk that path, one of their ultimate ends could be becoming a butcher. Again, that's not, who's to say how many butchers there are, how many Forsakers there were, but that's one on display. Kingsman gets displayed as well, where it's a survivor is cursed, they change, they become a Kingsman. The Kingsman has a something about them, something in their head that drives them to lure kings around to settlements. They have a purpose. They're given a purpose, and they go to settlements and fight survivors. So it shows you the beginning of how monsters usually start, how they go through. The Gorm, much the same. The level 1 Gorm shows, just a regular Gorm. Level 2 Gorm talks about how they have dens where they give babies and stuff, how their dens work. Level 3 is the Ancient Gorm, how the Ancient One grows tusks, how they have Gorm yards, all those things. Like elephants. What was another one? The Dung Beetle talks about how the Dung Beetle started off as a regular-sized beetle that really wanted to get to where the Flower Knight was, so it decided to imitate the Flower Knight and eventually became a Dung Beetle Knight. So these are just all examples. I don't want to go through all of them, but the big one is the Watcher, right? That lantern horde is its cocoon. It gestates in the cocoon. It builds, it eats the lanterns, slowly changing the landing years. Survivors count them down. Unknowingly, they count down to the timer end of when the Watcher is going to wake up. But a lot of Kingdom Death's story is shown throughout life cycles. Twilight Knights are no different. Twilight Knights, a lot of their lore are archivists or from the Grand Library. The Grand Library somehow gets burned down. They split off into pairs. The old Twilight Order had relic smiths, these weaponsmiths that created these relic weapons, like the Twilight Sword is one of them. And the sword itself has some personality to it. It has something that it wants. It has a goal that it wants from the wielder. The wielder itself uses the Twilight Knight as an instrument to give the Twilight Knight power, but the archivists know that those weapons will eventually either, one, corrupt the Twilight Knight, disturb the Twilight Knight, or they give them a chance and they'll be able to control it. This is what the archivists offer to Lightning. That's the purpose of the mind locks, to stop the Twilight Knight, or to stop the Twilight Sword from taking control of the Knight itself. Now, with the Twilight Knight that's with this archivist, the Twilight Knight has, much like the Butcher, ripped off its hood, shed its things, decided to tie the sword to itself. It wields the sword still, but it doesn't let it go. It's still attached to it. This Twilight Knight is one of the process of the possible ends of a Twilight Knight. You have the Twilight Knights who finish their training, which is what Lightning was sent off to do, right? This is the start of her training. That's why it's called the Twilight Knight in Training. She just had her mind locks put on it. Now, just give it time, and her goal is to master that weapon. For two reasons. Archivist wants her to do so, because, again, Twilight Knights are protecting archivists. They travel in pairs of two. The archivist that's currently out there was, again, traveling with the red-headed Aya. right? The red-haired Aya, right? That's who she's with. She's also with another survivor. But she's also with this Twilight Knight that's not fully, is either losing or doing his own path to this thing. And the archivist can tell that this Twilight Knight is currently walking the path of a deserter, right? It doesn't know if it's going to stay with this archivist. The archivist can tell because he's started to tatter his hood. He's tied the relic to himself because he can't abandon it because the sword still talks to him. This was much the same as like Lightning had, where the Lightning sword was the one that Rodin had, was the one that was the one that he pulled out of a dream, right? It was meant for him. He came, he lost the duel, then this same night, the one that eventually now has deserted, was carrying around this extra one, came back to him to seek Lightning out. Somehow he must have known that her body is perfection. She fights with a fist and tooth. She is incredibly strong. So the other end, when if a deserter completely falls, much like a butcher, they become a relic knight. Relic knights are people who have completely lost to the personality in the sword. The sword has completely taken them over, or whatever relic weapon they happen to be carrying. They're completely taken over by it. They become relic knights. Their mind is gone. Their mind is it's not their own anymore. They live out their. It's a switch. Whereas the Twilight Knights are using the relic weapon as their instrument of destruction for their tool for their weaponry. They use the sword. This is the other way. The sword is just using the body recklessly, expending it to its 100% ends to fulfill whatever purpose it has, right? The purpose is not completely explained even in the lore, what they want to do, what the sword's looking for, but that sword's personality has taken over it, and all they want is a super strong body to push to the most extreme limits. They want one that can withstand whatever they want to be testing. Hence why this deserter listened to the other sword, came back, and sought out Lightning. So, with the mind locks, she doesn't know any of this. But whatever it is, that's the story. The archivist probably going to need a new Twilight Knight, hoping that will come from Lightning. She also realizes that this deserter is also using Lightning to maybe make another Relic Knight, a perfect Relic Knight, right? This one that when the deserters are dual-minded, right? They haven't completely lost to it, but their mind locks have been shattered, so they don't have the protection. And when that happens, maybe the archivist doesn't want to save its partner, right? So you've got a weird mix here of what's exactly going to happen. Two goals Lightning is going to be presented with two outcomes, right? One represents her falling, one represents her being controlled. It's going to be a mix. But so that's where she gets sent off at the start. So this is the training. This is how all initiates do it. They get mind locked, they get given a weapon, and they get told to go fight a Watcher. If they can kill the Watcher, they complete their training. If their mind locks are still intact, great. They can take all the knowledge. Archivists write it all down. They try to save it anywhere they can, and then they are initiated. Now, when you become an actual final Twilight Knight, when you become the Order Knight, right? Those are the ones that are not just Twilight Knights. They have multiple relic weapons. They're like the paragons of the process of the mind locks, right? They've mastered it. They have accepted their mind locks. They've completely given into them. They can now wield multiple of these relic weapons. So that's the peak. That's the other end that you could have attained, right? So there's multiple outcomes which Lightning will see. So that's where they're going. That's where we start season 2. So with Lightning, again, they're very emotionless because they've got they have no personality of their own. Everything is just turned down to it, right? Survivors are not peak mentally fit individuals, as we talked about in season 1. All those people all had problems. None of them, survivors are, they're prone for disorders. They're prone to go insane. They're prone to just do crazy stuff. Cannibalism. They're not peak mental fitness. The world is not good for them. It's shaped. They're very low priority. But as Twilight Order is concerned, you need them. You need something to be the instrument of those relic knights, or those relic swords, right? The relic weaponry. You need something to wield it, and it's the option that you're presented with. It's the best one. Can't give it to monsters. So they blank everything from them, right? Basically, she's going to be like a robot, right? She's just a Terminator at this point. She's just no personality. She just does what's coded into her from her mind locks, and that is fight monsters, protect the settlement, fight monsters, protect the settlement, go out every single year, fight as many monsters as you can, wait until the Watcher gestates. That's her mission. That's all she's got to do. So, very methodically, she's prone to protect people. So, in the prologue, she gets messed up. She kills the lion and everything, but she is just a bloody mess. The lion throws her all around. She's just nothing, right, of her former self, because she's a blank slate. She doesn't remember what she doesn't know what she's capable of. She doesn't know how to fight the way she used to fight. She doesn't have all her masteries and everything. She's been completely erased. So, sure, she can just take white lions like nothing, but she doesn't know why she's stronger than everyone else, right? No one else can be able to take this kind of abuse. She doesn't know why, but she's peak physical form. And the lion just destroys her, wrecks her. Sure, she completed her objective, protect everybody, get them to a Watcher settlement, and wait for the Watcher, right? That's her goal. That's what the archivist told her to do. She succeeded. Resulted in her being a bloody mess. She's got a broken arm. She's completely knocked down after this fight. The other 3 survivors survive, but they have to carry her to where she tells them. Just says, we're going to the Atlantis Horde. So be safe there. And they just carry her, right? There's no choice. She's just this, it's just stupid, right? Why would she? So they carry her. She's just bleeding all over the place. She's pretty much dead. Even mechanically in the game, she had 4 bleeds at this point. 4 bleeds and a broken arm. The fact that she even survived the prologue is kind of crazy. I got super insanely lucky. But, so they bring her back. It's the same thing that we start again. Atlantis Horde, they build a settlement around it. Now, because of the variant, because of her, she doesn't know her limits. She doesn't care. The sword, or not the sword, her locks, she's just got her one single-minded focus. It's protect people, kill monsters, and survive until this lantern thing wakes up. That's pretty much all she hears. It drones over and drones over and drones over in her, right? It's something to keep her focus off that sword, even beginning to talk to her at all. Nothing. It's got to be so just monotone, right? It's just got to droll over her. It's like a brainwashing. She can't, anything it can do to overpower the sword trying to break through. So every year she fights, which is crazy because there's many things in the game where you would have to skip hunts, right? Normally a broken arm, 4 bleeds, stuff like that, you'd have to skip a hunt. But she just gets right back up, goes back, fights with the broken arm. Doesn't even slow her, doesn't even phase her down. All the other survivors who go out with her for the first hunt, again, you send out, mechanically, what you want to do in the game is you always want to send out survivors. You want your hunters to be strong right away because you want them to be the masters of their weaponry. You want them to be getting the most experience right away. You want them to be pushing towards their weapon masteries, pushing towards getting like fighting arts where you can put on sculptures. You tend to reuse them even mechanically in the game, but in this sense, the better the fighter is, the more likely they're to kill something, right? That's the mindset early game. That's the mindset of a settlement, right? If those people prove they can kill a lion, they're obviously going to be able to do it again. So you send out Ysa, you send out Lightning. Now Ysa is an interesting case because she's the one who had to drag pretty much, firemen's carry Lightning even back. The fact that Lightning's willing to go back out again at all is, like I said, it's abnormal. Most people take a break, right? I think in this case, who was it who had to stop? Mordor would have to stop fighting. He couldn't go out again because of injuries you get. I think he was the one to develop language, and then you're not able to go out and hunt again. So whenever you hit physical peaks or whenever you hit achievements and stuff, usually you have to skip a hunt, right? It's draining on you. But no, not lightning. And the fact that she's able to do it despite bleeding out multiple times, because in the very beginning of the game, it's hard. Like years ones, year twos, those are like some of the hardest fights you'll have in the game, even though they're against the easiest monsters. Later in the game, you shouldn't even be fighting level ones. They're like a breeze. But in the beginning, when you have no gear, and you have no fighting arts, and you have no stats, they are very difficult. Which again goes back to why I said you always want to use the same ones to build them up. So this is astounding to Yisa, right? They don't know, survivors don't know what the Twilight Order is, right? The only way, normally in a game, the way survivors are introduced to the Twilight Order is the same way I talked about with Season 1. When you reach certain achievements, when archivists and the Twilight Knights find a settlement that have established around the Lantern Horde, they'll come and visit it. That's how this all started to begin with in Season 1. That's how it all happened, where they got Twilight Knights, where they got mixed up with all these people. But in this case, the Twilight Knight's just here, and they're training, so the archivist doesn't come and visit. There's no point to. So they don't know, like, all this, and you can't get it out of Lightning. Again, she's mind-blanked. You're lucky if she even says anything back to you when you even talk to her. She's so single-mindedly focused, with no personality whatsoever. She's completely emotionless. So, Yisa is astounded by this, right? When you see someone who can do this, much like what Lightning aspired to in Season 1, when you see someone with power like that, when you're so low on the totem pole, but these people are, but Lightning is exactly you. There's no difference between Lightning is a survivor. She's a reflection of them. So when they see her, they see themselves in her. So when you see someone who's pretty much like a superhero, right? She's way better than you can be. The weapons she has, you don't understand how she got here. You have to make crude weapons out of bone at this point. You're scrambling out of, like, you're wearing like loincloths. Here she is in full armor with a weapon and all this stuff. So Yisa sees that and wants it. Not because she strives for power. Yisa's more of a, like, how can I do that? Or how did you do that? Much more inquisitive natured person. So she tries to, like, imitate Lightning, right? She sees, maybe it's the stoic nature that Lightning pushes on, even though she, again, motionless, but it's kind of like the Terminator 2, like I said, like a Terminator, where even though it's a machine or whatever, John Connor can bond with it because it's protecting him. And, like, you can sense that. It's that same thing. The survivors can sense that Lightning's here for a good reason. She doesn't have to tell them it, if that makes any sense. Like, you don't have to tell something. It's just a sense of a feeling. It's more of like that bond that which Yisa and Lightning will share, because they're going to hunt repeatedly together. And again, as I explained in the other, hunting isn't like go out for the day and come back for a day. Hunting can be a whole thing, and if you don't make it, the settlement can starve, right? It could be like a very long process, a hunt. So, in this case, they're sharing all kinds of time together, but Lightning or Yisa can't break through. No one can break through to draw any kind of emotion out of her, regardless of how many hunts they go on, and they go on multiple hunts. They're going to go every year, non-stop. Lightning's going to go out every time, regardless. If there's something to happen, a nemesis or a hunt, Lightning just waits very methodically. She's not even included in, like, settlements events and stuff, right? Like I was saying in Season 1, she's very good at it, so they'd always use her because, the murder and everything, they'd use her as an example of doing chores, right? They'd be the settlement's gopher. Here, she just waits at the gate, doesn't really do much of anything else. It's time to hunt. She goes out, right? She just says, okay, we need to go. And then they go, right? It's like, how to best to put this? She's just like a metronome. It's very one note, and it's just hunt, rest, hunt, rest. And the settlement just, like, picks up this beat, right? It's like you're training like a dog, right? The dogs are a pet, like, they know what to do and when. Pets get really on regimented times. And that's basically what she is. It's a very weird thing to even hang around. So this goes on for years until Butcher shows up. Again, Lightning doesn't remember anything about these butchers. As far as Lightning's concerned, this thing shows up, it wants to kill people, so I'm going to kill it before it kills us, right? And when you have a blank, emotionless, no nonsense, just machine out there killing, these two exchange blows because they're similar, right? Butchers are rage-filled. They just frenzy attack. They're high speed, trying to cause bleed and everything. But Lightning doesn't. She can't develop tactics, right? She's not there to do that. She's there to just swing her sword and survive until the Watcher gets there, or Watcher awakens. These two are just a clash, right? And just mechanically, the nature, when the Butcher shows up, the Butcher's like a gear check in Kingdom Death. So even when you would fight this normally, the difficulty in the Butcher isn't so much, the first time you fight it, difficulty in the Butcher isn't so much strategy. It's just surviving that and hoping that you can tank it and stay in the grass because it has low accuracy. Because again, it just swings as fast. It's all about speed and just trying to just do brute force frenzy damage, right? It's not about, it doesn't have any tactics. Butchers don't really have tactics. So these are like two immovable objects, two things that are just like-minded, trying to kill each other as fast as possible. And even then, Lightning was not able to save everybody. The Butcher, Arwen, I think, yeah, Arwen died during this Butcher encounter. And again, another situation in which I think she suffered a broken hip. Another just, again, she pretty much stood 1-to-1 with it and fought it off. And again, she walked away with 4 bleed and another permanent injury. She is not in good shape. And again, she just walks it off. What can you do? And this, again, makes everybody in the settlement look at her and be like, this is nuts that you can do this. You can just stay. You just stood up to a Butcher and walked away with 4 bleed and get dragged back to the settlement after you're done killing it. It's kind of eerie, and it doesn't make the survivors more sympathetic to Lightning, right? Now, after this moment, the survivors around the settlement don't look at her so much as a protector, more so as a weird thing that is part of this world that's out to kill them, right? The same way you would look at the Twilight when it first comes, when it gives you the sword, and then now you just have the sword and it just says, well, I'll come back, and we'll see what happens, because it returns with unfinished business. It's the same thing. It's like this, you don't know why it's here. It's good that it's here. It's good that the Lightning's here. We don't know why she's here, and we don't know what her purpose is, but she doesn't want us to die, and she helps us out. But she doesn't talk to us. It's a huge, weird thing. And luckily enough, the settlement has Yisa, which in pretty much, she's the one who the settlement's more looking towards. She's become like a third-party mediator in this situation, because she goes out with Lightning every single time. She's the one who's going to approach Mastery. She's the one who can actually talk, who actually describes it. Lightning kind of likes her because, again, she hasn't let Yisa die. She's never tried to hurt Yisa. But she's always protecting Yisa, but at the same time, they're friends the same way I just explained John Connor and the Terminator are friends, right? It's just a weird bonding, which you can't even explain because it's so unnatural. But, so years pass again, same thing. Kind of Lightning and Yisa are going to go out every single time. Except once, something different happens from season 1. After the Butcher, the next hunt, and they return, all the survivors in the settlement that didn't go on the hunt, Lightning and Yisa return to a dead white speaker who's laying in a pool of her own blood and a pool of black ichor. It's like a tar. It's like a water. It's like a black ichor. It's not slime. It's not like very dense and thick, but it's slightly thicker than water. But it is a water, and it's black. It looks like jet black, like tar. You can't see through it. Now, how the White Speaker got here, she comes through a black portal and just falls out and can't talk, doesn't speak the same language as the survivors. Again, the Watcher language is specific to the people of the Lantern. They learn that language just from being around the Lantern Horde. Different survivors in different settlements that don't start around Lantern Hordes learn different languages because they're not there, right? How they learn that language, who knows? But Twilight Knights can speak it. They communicate because they deal with Watchers all the time. White Speakers, not necessarily. So the gibberish mumbling that the White Speaker does before it dies, no one even knows what it is. But the Ichor that came out, the survivors tell Lightning and Ysa, well, they tell Ysa, that it came out of her, right? She split into like a fountain of gore, and the thing just, it spewed out of her, all the blood drained out, and now she's just in that pool. And what this is a Slenderman. Now, Slenderman, as I was talking and alluding to, you get the life cycle of something whenever you read them. Whenever you introduce a monster and you get the introduce a monster into the campaign, you get the campaign introduction of an expansion, you can read it. And this is the introduction for the Slenderman. The White Speaker came from a dark ocean. That's where the White Speaker was. And underneath that ocean, it's just in the water is just what looks like, it's like a mangrove trees where there's just roots all running around in the water. And these are black roots that kind of like look slimy and move around in there, and they're kind of like living. And then inside this ocean, in amongst all these roots and all these writhing, like almost like branch-like things, is a black shadowy Slenderman. That's it. It lives there, and when you see it, it's so traumatic and traumatizing that your memory is blocked. It's like it's put into a haze. You can't remember that you saw it. It's so terrifying, and that's what it does to you. And this happens to the returning survivors, which are Lightning, Ysa, what was the other ones in this case? Lightning, Ysa, Cyrus, and Tyson. Oh, I forgot. Tyson. So, in this season, Mordor, on one of the hunts when he was going out with Lightning, Mordor came across the living statue. And the living statue, again, from season 1, you can go listen to it and everything. He touched it. He befell to the living statue. He became that statue, and out came Tyson from season 1. Tyson was Riley's son, and Tyson was trapped in that living statue way in the beginning of the first recap part of season 1, way early, before Lightning even showed up. So Tyson has no idea who Lightning even is. But Mordor gets trapped in that living stone, and he's still trapped there. I never encountered that random event again in season 2, so Mordor is still trapped out there somewhere in the darkness, waiting to be recovered again. So, with that said, so Mordor is now the new person who's trapped in for what will be going forward in my seasons. But so that's how Tyson gets here. I forgot to mention it. So they get affected by seeing this, right? They get the blotted out fighting art, where it's like this. They forget everything about them and they reset. Now for Lightning, this is interesting for Lightning. She gains the blotted out fighting art. The trait has an effect on her, even though she has nothing about her, right? She's been given a state in which they just repeat. It's by design. These mind locks are meant to repeat in a very drone-like fashion. It just pounds in your mind. And that is the purpose of those locks. But for her to gain this blotted out maybe shows a sign of weakness in these. So Ysa gains it, everyone gains it, and they forget that this incident happened with the White Speaker. And they just go on, continue hunting, go back to their lives, until finally what happens is the Slenderman festers, and the memories of this thing re-triggers. It takes 4 or 5 years after seeing the dead White Speaker for someone with the blotted out to have a memory relapse. And that is what that trigger from the blotted, whoever has the blotted out fighting art, triggers a vision of the black shadow, right? And they can think about it. They remember back to the white speaker. They remember what happened 4 years prior, and manifests the shadowy figure into the Slenderman, and it just appears right there in the middle of the settlement, and you have to fight it. Now the Slenderman is a weird plant-like being, right? It's a plant-like thing. It's this all black. It looks like the mythical Slenderman. That's what it's based on. That's what it is. It's just rethemed to fit the Kingdom Death thing, and the way it's rethemed is its tentacles and everything that grow out of its back are like a plant-like root, and these writhing roots can get in you, and they can put you in a pod imprisonment where you get thrown into that water, and you get trapped in this prison where you're drowning, and those roots just pull you down. It somehow can split reality. It's not explained how it can do this, but it's the same way the white speaker came to the settlement, where it's like a black portal. Only she came through it, escaping from the pod. It's just like black water that pools underneath you while you fight. The roots just come and they pull you down. And then you're just in that dark ocean, regardless of where it is in the actual world, where it could possibly be, if it actually is an actual real place. But that's where you are. And you can be trapped there and drowned. And the only way someone can go over there and try to reach in and pull you out. They have to split it. This is mid-fight. You'd have to split it and try to pull someone out. But this whole time, while you're fighting the Slenderman, this thing, it can manifest and re-manifest all over the board, almost like it's teleporting via the water and everything. And during this fight, the four people who go out, who are the four? You've got, again, Lightning, obviously, Yisa, Tyson, and Alis. Oh, Alis didn't die against the Butcher. Cyrus must have died. But anyway, so the four people who go out, and right away, it traps someone, right? It traps Cyrus. No, Alis first traps inside this pod imprisonment. Then the next, throughout the fight, it traps Cyrus in this pod imprisonment. Then it begins to start doing it with Yisa. Lightning has just a breakthrough of emotion. For some reason, either the mind locks get weaker because of the blotted out, or something with this Slenderman, or she broke through because she felt that everyone was going to die and she was going to fail. Might have been a trigger from the mind locks, but for whatever reason, she surges through this thing. She just destroys the Slenderman in a brute of emotion, almost like old Lightning. Remember, if you watch back the old Lightning, she ripped things apart, completely just goring in showers of gore, ripping apart with her bare hands. This raw emotion, this rage fuel thing, because she originally wanted to pursue to be a butcher. So it shows itself again, and she just absolutely destroys this Slenderman. Its head explodes in little pods are all over or little seeds go everywhere. And she's not able to save everybody, but she's able to save Yisa, which must have been what triggered her to go into this rage-fueled state. And during this, she gets some of the dark water in her, right? Because she went even non-mechanically here, non-thematic. Mechanically, even if in this episode when I had to fight this, I had to surge twice and get 6 hits with a devastating weapon to kill this thing in this round. Otherwise, everybody would have died. I didn't have a crazy amount of damage on this last turn. It was literally the only way, because I knew I was going to die. And the reason why I had to do it was, again, because if Lightning dies in the campaign was over. So it was literally a last ditch effort. Not only thematically, but mechanically, I had no choice. So when the water gets inside of her mouth, the dark water has a crazy effect on survivors' minds. When a normal survivor drinks the dark water, because the dark water is something you can harvest from the Slenderman. When a normal survivor drinks the dark water, they reset. They lose all their disorders, they lose all their fighting arts, and they lose their name. And they reset back to where they first started, right? They forget their whole lifetime. And it's the same thing now when Lightning did it. Lightning gets the Stark water in her, drinks. I think a seed goes into her mouth too from the death blow. She has a moment where she just, according from everyone else, Geese is the only one out there. From a standing position to a prone position, just falls flat, right? It broke something inside Lightning. It starts eating away at the mind locks. Normal survivors, it's like a cleansing moment. Like you just wash over with the Stark water, back to pure what you started as. This just destroys and opens the mind. It doesn't completely shatter them. It just lets Lightning hear the sword for the first time, right? She hasn't heard this since back to when she was living with the sword, when the Twilight Knight gave it to her, when she was rock bottom, right? Rock bottom of a human's life, right? She had gone through such traumatic thing. She had no one left to talk to. Everyone excommunicated her, and she was exiled. And she was at the peak rock bottom. And in that dark, dark moment was when the sword was talking to her. And now it has come back again, and the sword convinces her that she can attain, and she can go back to what she was, right? Tries to refresh her memory, not completely, however. The sword tells her that those archivists and those Twilight Knights that she can remember kindly, slightly, with the visions that she's had while she's in this catatonic state, those people don't have the best intentions for her, which may or may not be true. Lightning won't know until she meets those people again, if she ever does. It may or may not be true that those people have the best intentions for Lightning. Twilight Knight probably does not, because again, he's trying to create a Relic Knight. The Archivist just needs someone to replace her deserter. Her Twilight Knight's gone nuts. So, again, they might not have the best interest for her. But the sword reminds her that those people were lying, right? And she is willing to believe that those people, you shouldn't have anything to do with you. They lied about everything you are. They even told you your name, right? Your name was a complete falsehood. Your name is actually Kenna. Don't you remember that, right? Don't you remember back when your friend tried to murder you and you were actually Kenna? You were the savior of the entire settlement, right? You were the one everyone looked up to. Can't you tell? That's what they're doing here. Everyone looks up to you. You were their protector. You're the person who just helps them and guides them and wants to protect. That's what you always were, right? And then in this moment, she wakes up back in the settlement. Gisa again had to drag her completely back. She wakes up from the state, and she's talkative for the first time. Lightning has not talked throughout entirety of season 2. So she thanks Gisa for carrying her. This is the first time anybody's ever talked. I mean, again, when I say talk, they knew her name was Lightning, right? She's very monotone. She just says, yeah, my name's Lightning. I'm here to protect you and do these things. We need to go hunt, or let's go. It's time to go. But now she's much more talkative. She tells him that her name is Kenna. And this, everyone's like, what is going on, right? Very weird. But as far as they're concerned, you have the strongest, you have the best chances to survive with this Twilight Knight here. And whatever just happened, if she's broken mentally and she just went batshit crazy, you're still better off with her here than you are with her not being here. So they decide, you know what, we'll just let that slide. No one's going to talk to her and let her talk about that at all. We're not going to mention that to her. But maybe we should start not relying on her so much, right? You get what you pay for, right? Sure, damaged goods are cheap. Damaged goods are such a steal, but they're still damaged goods. And that's what the settlement's got now with, I guess, Kenna. I guess is what she's going to be going by. So, we'll pick this up. This would be just about halfway through season 2. Again, this was more focused on just Lightning and what Yisa have to do. I'm not going to be going completely focusing on all the other survivors like I did with season 1. Again, because Season 1 was more about the game itself telling me this mechanic. Season 2 is more about me finishing off the story that we presented in Season 1. So, we got one more part left. It will take us through. Again, if you wanted to watch Season 1, Part 1, 2, and 3, Season 2 will be Part 4 and 5. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the final part.